They're betting that the economy is going into a severe recession, interest rates are going to drop, and those 3.7% yields are going to look really good.
The recession is going to be worse than analysts expect, and the bottom is going to be lower than analysts expect. We could be looking at current levels, bearing in mind we're down significantly from January 1st, 2022. It could go down easily, down 30%, and it wouldn't shock me if it was down 50%. You're looking at, the S&P, 2,000, 2,100, something like that. Jim Rickards, an author, economist, and investment banker, is sounding the alarm about the potential future of the stock market and the American economy. He disagrees with the prevailing optimistic views and warns of a grim scenario. Based on his prediction records, he foresees a significant crash of 30% to 50% in the American markets during a severe recession, which could average around a 40% decline. Currently, the widely used yardstick for measuring the American stock market is the S&P 500, which stands at approximately 4,500 points. Jim believes that the points could decrease to a range between 2,100 and 2,000. To better understand the situation, he suggests reading 4 separate stories. Initially, he discusses 3 narratives, focusing on the stock market, the bond market, and what is genuinely happening. However, he adds a 4th story, the Fed's tale, which becomes part of the mix. Jim compares the experience to being in an Irish pub with 3 Irish storytellers, each sharing distinct stories that require attentive listening to comprehend fully. I've been able to express it this way. Imagine you're in an Irish pub with 3 Irish storytellers. I'm half Irish, so I can talk about the Irish, but they're telling 3 distinct stories, and you have to listen to each one. The Fed's tale. The first is the story that the Fed is telling. According to Jim Rickards, the Fed essentially has a major aim in mind, which is to do anything they can to drive down inflation. Their goal is to have what is known as core PCE inflation, personal consumption expenditures, at 2%. This core price inflation is just inflation, but it excludes food and energy prices. Many economists wonder why food and energy prices are being excluded, but regardless, the Federal Reserve continues to use this yardstick as their preferred measure. The evidence suggests that the Federal Reserve is primarily focused on achieving one key criterion: bringing down inflation. They seem unconcerned about the possibility of causing a recession or increasing unemployment in the process. In fact, they expect both outcomes and have even hinted at an impending recession, using terms like pain to describe the potential consequences. Even seasoned experts have noticed this unusual choice of words from the Fed chairman, indicating the seriousness of the situation and the potential challenges ahead. When faced with the need to control inflation, the Federal Reserve turns to its primary tool: interest rates. By raising interest rates, consumer borrowing and spending are reduced, which in turn lowers the demand for goods and leads to a decrease in inflation, as reduced demand often results in lower prices. However, the challenge the Fed faces is determining the right level to raise interest rates in order to effectively bring inflation down. This can be a complex and difficult task for them to accomplish. Finding the right balance is crucial for the Federal Reserve. They aim to avoid setting interest rates too high, as it could lead to a sharp decline in inflation while negatively affecting other aspects of the economy. Similarly, keeping rates too low may not effectively bring inflation down. The goal is to determine the terminal rate, a percentage at which rates are maintained to allow inflation to naturally decrease. However, the challenge arises when rates are raised too high, potentially overshooting the desired outcome and causing unintended consequences. This scenario is likely to be the major concern for the Federal Reserve. The stock market's tale. So what are the differing views between the Federal Reserve and the stock market regarding the current interest rate situation and its potential impact on the economy? Currently, the Federal Reserve is increasing interest rates to tackle inflation, but there's a potential danger of over-tightening, which could result in a recession. The stock market holds a different perspective, believing that the Fed will eventually reach the terminal rate and that the economy will remain stable. These views are contrasting. The Fed is cautious about raising rates too much, while the stock market is optimistic that the Fed will handle the situation appropriately and stop at the right moment. It is still too early to say which view will be correct. The Fed is continuing to raise rates, and it will be interesting to see how the economy responds. The stock market is also watching closely, and it will be interesting to see how the market reacts if the Fed does over-tighten the economy. When rates are decreased, we hope the economy will receive a gentle landing after the recession. The bond market's tale. The third installment of the stock market drama, in Rickards' opinion, is more like a fairy tale than a true account of events. A Goldilocks situation where the market is correct. The Fed is incorrect, but once they realize that the market is correct, they will lower interest rates and buy stocks, since that is how Wall Street always concludes its analyses. According to Rickard, the bond market narrative accurately predicts what will transpire. Every aspect of the bond market worldwide is pointing in the same direction. The inverted 10-year Treasury minus the 2-year Treasury indicates that short-term Treasuries have higher rates than longer-term ones. This is also evident in the Euro-dollar futures yield curve, where shorter-term rates are higher than longer-term rates. These inversions are significant globally, indicating a clear message from the bond market. The last time we saw anything like this was in 2007, just before the 2008 financial disaster.
1998 was a foreshock. That was the long-term capital management crisis. I negotiated that bailout on behalf of LTCM. 2008, people don't need reminding, the entire financial system, we were days away from the sequential collapse of every bank in the world. So I take that 10-year tempo, come forward 10 more years, and hypothesize a collapse in 2008. But it could happen tomorrow, that's the point. It'll be worse than the last one.
The bond market is saying no, this is bad, and it's just going to get worse, and it's actually too late for the Fed to do anything about it. Basically, the bond market is yelling. A recession is on its way from every corner of the planet. The reality. Then comes the true story. As Jim says, whether you like it or not, the Fed will keep its plan of raising rates to try to bring down inflation. This is what the Fed has said they're going to do, and Jim takes them at their word, but he believes we are already at the terminal rate and there's no need to keep raising rates. The Fed will make the wrong move as they plan to keep increasing rates. With the Fed increasing rates, they're going too tight and therefore making the recession even worse than it needs to be. This is why he thinks it won't be an ordinary recession. It will be a severe one. If the Fed realizes that the economy is in bad health, will they still pivot even if it's for the wrong reasons? This question asks about the potential motivations of the Fed if they do decide to pivot from their current monetary policy stance. It is possible that the Fed may pivot because they realize that they have over-tightened the economy and that a recession is imminent. However, it is also possible that the Fed may pivot for other reasons, such as political pressure or a desire to avoid a recession at all costs. Given this perspective, the crucial question is how to get ready for such an event. Rickards' view, in simple terms, is that he believes the market will face tough times ahead, leading to a significant correction, possibly even a 30% to 50% decline.
One, a severe recession and a steep drop in inflation, and those two things do go together. One more example, again, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but there's something, the Fed has an overnight reverse repo facility. And what does that mean? So the Fed says, hey, send me give me your cash, and I'll give you a treasury bill as collateral, and then we'll unwind it at some point in the future. It's called a reverse repo. So I can call up the Fed, have them send me treasury bills as collateral, give them cash, and they'll pay me interest on that. It's a phone call. I don't have to do anything fancy. Okay, but the Treasury also sells treasury bills.
To prepare for this, he prefers investing in assets like natural resources, bonds, cash, gold, and silver. On the other hand, if you understand that the market always overreacts, you can buy stocks on sale as we move into the recession. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with others, and consider subscribing for more insights on market conditions and investing strategies. Please comment below on what you would like us to cover next. Remember, there are various ways to approach the market, so it's essential to decide your own strategy based on your beliefs and outlook.